What's up? What's up? Welcome to the Mindset Mentor Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Dial. And today, we're diving into something that's going to blow your mind. You know those people who LOV staying home, the ones who turn down party invitations without a second thought. Society calls them antisocial, boring, weird. But here's the thing, science is proving they might actually be the most psychologically healthy people on the planet. So if you love this episode, do me a favor and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's dive in. You know what's fascinating? We're living in the most stimulated generation in human history. Think about it. Right now, your phone is probably within arm's reach. You've got Instagram notifications, text messages, emails, TikTok videos firing at you like a machine gun of dopamine hits. Your brain is literally being hijacked every single second of every single day. And society tells us this is neo-RMAL. Society tells us we need to be out there, networking, socializing, hitting up happy hours, going to parties, saying yes to every invitation that comes our way. But here's what nobody's telling you. Your brain wasn't designed for this level of constant stimulation. Let me break this down for you because this is qualityoverquantity, your dopamine system, the reward center of your brain. It's like a muscle. And just like a muscle, when you overwork it, it gets fatigued. When you're constantly seeking that next hit of excitement, that next social interaction, that next event, you're essentially numbing your dopamine receptors. You need more and more stimulation to feel less satisfied. It's the same mechanism behind addiction. You become addicted to the chaos. You become addicted to the noise. And before you know it, you can't even sit still with your own thoughts for 5 minutes without feeling anxious or bored. But people who genuinely love staying home, they've accidentally stumbled upon something that neuroscientists are now proving is absolutely genius. They're giving their nervous system what it's been BG&G for: rest. Real, deep, restorative rest. Not the kind of rest where you're scrolling through your phone on the couch. I'm talking about genuine solitude. The kind where you're reading a book or cooking a meal or working on a hobby or just sitting in silence with a cup of coffee. And here's where the magic happens too. When you remove all that external noise, when you stop bombarding your brain with constant stimulation, your dopamine receptors actually rest. Studies are showing that people who regularly practice solitude have higher dopamine sensitivity. Do you understand what that means? It means they can experience more joy from LES stimulation. A quiet morning at home feels as good to them as a night out feels to someone who's constantly seeking external validation. They're not missing out. They're actually experiencing life more deeply than the people running around chasing the next thing. While everyone else needs louder music, bigger parties, more drinks, more people to feel something, homebodies are finding profound satisfaction in simplicity. And this isn't about being lazy or antisocial. This is about being intentional with your energy. Your nervous system operates in 2 modes, sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is your fight or flight mode, your go mode. Parasympathetic is your rest and digest mode, your healing mode. Most people are stuck in sympathetic overdrive. They're running on stress hormones and calling it productivity. They're burning out their adrenal glands and wondering why they feel exhausted all the time. But when you prioritize time at home, when you create space for genuine rest, you're allowing your body to shift into that parasympathetic state. You're literally healing your nervous system. Here's what I want you to understand. Choosing to stay home isn't about avoiding life. It's about managing your internal resources like the valuable currency they are. It's about recognizing that in a world designed to extract every ounce of your attention and energy, the most revolutionary thing you can do is protect your peace. Those homebodies everyone calls boring, they're not running away from the world, they're running toward themselves. And in doing that, they're building a foundation of mental clarity and emotional stability that most people spend thousands of dollars in therapy trying to find. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Now, let's talk about something that's going to completely shift your perspective on what it means to be someone who loves staying home. Because here's what society has gotten completely backwards. They think that people who prefer solitude are somehow less intelligent, less capable, less ambitious. But the research tells us the exact opposite story. Neuroscientists have actually studied the brains of introverts versus extroverts, and what they found is absolutely mind-blowing. Introverted brains, the brains of people who genuinely enjoy their own company, they have more gray matter in their prefrontal cortex. Now, if you're not familiar with neuroscience, let me tell you why this matters. Your prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain. It's responsible for complex thinking, decision-making, planning, problem-solving, and abstract reasoning. It's literally the part of your brain that makes you a human. And people who love staying home, they've got more of it working at a higher capacity. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When you're constantly in social situations, when you're always out there in the noise and the chaos, your brain is operating in what I call reactive mode. You're responding to stimuli. You're managing conversations. You're reading social cues. You're performing. And don't get me wrong, those are important skills. But that's surface level processing. Your brain is skating across the ice, but it's not diving deep into the water beneath. When you're home, when you're in that quiet space with minimal external stimulation, that's when your brain shifts into a completely different gear. That's when you move from reactive mode into creative mode. That's when you can think deeply, connect complex ideas, solve problems that require sustained attention. Think about every major breakthrough in human history. They didn't happen at networking events or parties. They happened in laboratories, in studies, in quiet rooms where brilliant minds had the specie to think without interruption. Einstein literally said that his greatest insights came during his long walks alone. Bill Gates takes what he calls think weeks, where he isolates himself in a cabin with nothing but books and his thoughts. Warren Buffett spends the majority of his day reading and thinking in his office, away from the chaos of Wall Street. Steve Wozniak, the guy who actually boiled to the first Apple computer, has said that most inventors and engineers he knows are introverts because invention requires deep, uninterrupted focus. These aren't people who are hiding from the world. These are people who understood that real innovation, real growth, real master Y happens in solitude. And this isn't just about famous geniuses. This applies to YOU. Every single person listening to this right now, when was the last time you had a genuine breakthrough while you were at a crowded bar? When was the last time you solved a complex problem while scrolling through social media at a party? You didn't. Because your brain can't access that level of processing when it's constantly being pulled in different directions. People who love staying home have figured out something that most people are too distracted to understand. Depth beats breadth every single time. You can know 1,000 people superficially, or you can know yourself profoundly. You can consume endless content, or you can CRAT something meaningful. You can react to the world, or you can sap the world. But you can't do both simultaneously. So when someone tells you that staying home makes you antisocial or weird or boring, what they're really saying is that they've never experienced the power of their own mind at full capacity. They've never sat in silence long enough to hear their own genius speak. And that's not your problem, that's theirs. Solitude isn't isolation, it's incubation. Here's something that's going to challenge everything you've been taught about what it means to be social. We've been conditioned to believe that the more people you know, the more events you attend, the more you're out there networking and connecting, the better off you'll be. But let me ask you something. How many of those connections actually matter? How many of those friendships go deeper than surface level small talk? How many of those relationships actually fill your cup instead of draining it? This is where people who love staying home are playing a completely different game. And honestly, they're winning because they understand something fundamental about human psychology and energy management that most people completely miss. Your social energy is finite. It's not unlimited. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you definitely can't build meaningful relationships when you're running on fumes. Think of your social battery like a bank account. Most people are out here spending recklessly. They're saying yes to every invitation, showing up to events they don't even want to attend, maintaining friendships that feel more like obligations than genuine connections. They're spreading themselves so thin that by the time they get to the people who ACTOL matter, their family, their closest friends, their partner, they've got nothing left to give. They're depleted. They're going through the motions. They're physically present, but emotionally checked out. But homebodies, they're not spenders. They're INV stars. They're incredibly strategic about where their energy goes. They're asking themselves, is this worth my time? Is this person worth my energy? Does this align with who I am and what I value? And when the answer is no, they have the courage to decline. They're not afraid of missing out because they understand something crucial. When you say yes to everything, you're actually saying no to the things that matter most. And here's what the research shows. People who are selective with their social interactions don't have meaningful relationships. They actually have DPAR, more satisfying ones. A study from the University of Virginia found that quality of relationships matters infinitely more than quantity when it comes to happiness and life satisfaction. You don't need 50 friends. You need 5 real ones. You don't need to be at every party. You need to be fully present at the gatherings that actually energize you. This is what emotional intelligence looks like in practice. It's knowing yourself well enough to recognize what drains you and what fuels you. It's having the self-respect to protect your energy instead of giving it away to anyone who asks. It's understanding that being selective isn't the same as being selfish. It's being smart. When you conserve your energy, when you're intentional about your social commitments, you show up as the BST version of yourself for the people who truly matter. And let's be real for a second. How many times have you gone out because you felt obligated? How many times have you said yes when everything in your body was screaming no? How many times have you come home from a social event feeling more exhausted than when you left? That's not connection, that's performance. That's you playing a role instead of being yourself. And it's exhausting because it's inauthentic. People who love staying home have stopped performing. They've stopped pretending. They've stopped forcing connections that don't feel natural. And in doing that, they've created space for relationships that are REL. Relationships where they can be themselves without apology. Relationships that give energy instead of taking it. Relationships built on genuine compatibility instead of social convenience. That's not antisocial. That's relationship mastery at the highest level. Now we're getting to the heart of everything we've been talking about, and this is where it all comes together. Because at the end of the day, what separates people who genuinely love staying home from everyone else isn't their social skills or their personality type or even their energy levels. It's something much deeper. It's self-awareness. And I'm not talking about surface level self-awareness like knowing your favorite color or what music you like. I'm talking about the kind of profound self-knowledge that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. Most people are terrified of being alone with themselves. And I mean truly alone. No phone, no TV, no distractions, no escape routes. Just them and their thoughts. That's scary for most people because when you remove all the noise, when you strip away all the external validation and the constant stimulation, you're forced to confront who you actually are, not who you pretend to be on social media, not the version of yourself you perform for other people, the REL you. And for a lot of people, they've spent so long running from that person that they don't even know who they are anymore. But people who love staying home, they've done something incredibly brave. They've stopped running. They've sat down with themselves and had the hard conversations. They've looked in the mirror without flinching. They've asked themselves the questions that most people are too afraid to ask. What do I actually want? What makes me happy? Not what makes other people think I should be happy. What are my values? What am I willing to stand for? And what am I willing to walk away from? And here's the kicker, they've actually listened to the answers. This is revolutionary in a world that's constantly telling you to hustle harder, do more, be everywhere, say yes to everything, chase the next promotion, the next milestone, the next achievement. We're bombarded with messages about who we should be, what we should want, how we should live our lives. And most people just accept it. They follow the script without ever questioning whether it's THER script or someone else's. They wake up at 40 years old wondering why they feel empty despite checking all the boxes society told them to check. When you're comfortable being alone with yourself, when you don't need constant external validation or stimulation to feel worthy, when you can sit in silence and actually find peace there instead of anxiety, that's when you know you've done the real work. That's when you've built a relationship with yourself that's so solid, so grounded that nobody can shake it. You're not looking for other people to complete you because you've realized you were never incomplete in the first place. You're not seeking approval because you've learned to approve of yourself. You're not chasing belonging because you've found home within yourself. And from that place of deep self-knowledge, from that foundation of inner peace, you can create AUNTHING. You can build the life you actually want instead of the life you think you're supposed to want. You can pursue goals that align with your authentic self instead of goals designed to impress people you don't even like. You can say no without guilt and yes without resentment because every decision comes from a place of clarity instead of confusion. This is what people who love staying home have figured out. They're not avoiding the world, they're building themselves up so strong on the inside that when they engage with the world, they do it from a place of wholeness instead of neediness, from abundance instead of scarcity, from choice instead of obligation. That's not hiding from life. That's mastering it. So let me bring this all home for you. If you're someone who loves staying at home, if you've ever felt guilty about turning down invitations, if you've ever questioned whether something's wrong with you because you'd rather have a quiet night in than go to another party, I need you to hear this. There is absolutely now to I change wrong with you. In fact, you might be one of the few people who's actually got it figured out. You've cracked the code on managing your dopamine and protecting your nervous system in a world that's designed to keep you overstimulated and burned out. You've tapped into the deeper processing power of your brain that creates real innovation and breakthrough thinking. You've mastered the art of investing your social energy wisely instead of wasting it on connections that don't matter. And most importantly, you've built a relationship with yourself that's so solid, you don't need the external world to validate your worth. The world is going to keep telling you to do more, be more, go out more. Society is going to keep pushing this narrative that productivity means chaos and success means being everywhere at once. But you get to choose differently. You get to define success on your terms. You get to build a life that actually feels good from the inside out, not just one that looks good from the outside in. And here's what I want you to remember. Every single person who's ever created something meaningful, who's ever had a breakthrough idea, who's ever built something that lasted, they all understood the power of solitude. They all knew that real transformation happens in the quiet. They all respected their energy enough to protect it fiercely. So the next time someone calls you antisocial or boring or asks why you're always at home, you can smile knowing that while they're out there chasing noise, you're building something real, you're building depth, you're building clarity, you're building you, and that's the most important work any of us will ever do. So keep doing it. Keep honoring what you need. Keep protecting your peace. Keep choosing quality over quantity. Keep staying home when home is where you need to be, because that's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's not avoidance, that's self-awareness. That's not missing out on life. That's actually living it on your own terms. Now go out there or actually stay right where you are and keep being unapologetically you. The world needs more people who know themselves this well. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.